These noses, with love from Amsterdam, thank you, Ineva. These noses are really well done. I see a lot of form. They feel 3D to me because you've basically followed the tutorial that I posted pretty good. Um, and basically the whole point of the tutorial was talking about the protrusion of the nose, how the nose isn't like the eyes or the lips where they're like flat on the face as if they're like taped on. The nose has different sort of mechanism to it. It's a different mechanism. Basically, imagine the face being one spherical thing. The eyes are like equivalent to taping on, sort of, not fully. They are three-dimensional objects. So same as the lips, but like taping on a drawing of a mouth, which is really easy to execute. It's really easy to execute a drawing of an eye and a drawing of a mouth in three-quarter view or face on, or front view. Because it's just a typical matter of, especially if in three-quarter view, um, of compressing the symmetry. So you have one eye here, one eye here. The symmetry is compressed, therefore we're automatically reading it as a three-quarter view eye and mouth. However, Ineva had issues with the three-quarter view nose. I did include lots of tutorials in Ineva about how to execute a good-looking three-quarter view nose. I'm not sure if you looked at it very well. So the point about the nose is that it sticks out. And from what I see here, you seem to be understanding that very well, at least by the way at least by the way your image reads. And uh, the way to make something, of course, three-dimensional is through edges. You're not using lines anymore. Lines are out of the picture, and right now you're depending on the edges around the image, or the edges of the image, the edges of the organic shape or whatever that you're drawing. And you're hoping that by combining a blended and non-blended combination of grayscales, that a 3D subject emerges out of it. And it is a gamble sometimes, especially with a nose. You have all the basics here, but I feel like you need a little bit more um, light sources going on, or reaction to the light. Again, there's no way to reveal a 3D object in a room on a table if you haven't shined the light or turned on the light. The light reveals the cast shadows. The cast shadows are a response to the 3D form or three-dimensional girth of the object that is standing in the way of the light. The light is the god of your image. It rules over all the colors, all the values, it rules over the contrast, it rules over which objects are painted sharp, which objects aren't painted sharp, um, where the blending happens, where the soft shadows happen, where the sharp shadows happen. It's all by determining the light. And if you don't have a light source there, it becomes very difficult. Now, the issue with your difficulty, like with the three-quarter view, is it can so be sourced from two main issues of like misunderstandings. First one could be that you don't understand that the shape of the nose itself is a triangular shape, and that you're having difficulty compressing that shape in a three-quarter way. So you have, well, you have bob and steep for the front view, but for the side, you've got something like where the nose sticks out just a bit more. And then you've got the nostrils here and here. So you might be having difficulty understanding the 3D rotation in EVA. And another issue would be you're having difficulty seeing that nose in that same light source from the three-quarter view. So, it's really difficult to pinpoint where the problem is, but the more you study, I guess, the more you expose yourself to mistakes, and it's easier to pinpoint where you have difficulty. But sometimes some of you forget that sometimes some of you only know how to paint a nose in a certain kind of light source. And so when you did a study about a nose in a light source that is in three-quarter view, and you studied the nose to be always shining this way, even though the eyes and the lips have a light source that shines this way, this could be the difficulty. That you don't have a consistent light source. You have a non-consistent light source, meaning the nose has a different light source shining on it in your imagination, and the eyes have a different light source as well as the mouth. It seems like you're having, it seems like it's either of these two things why you're having difficulty with it. This 3D rotation is a matter of understanding the symmetry and how it's compressed in a 3/4 view. I made a video about that. So this is front view, this is Bob, this is Steve, this is the tip of the nose, and these are the two nostrils and the open and closed brackets. When you do 3/4 view, it is compressed. These measurements are compressed. So you have the symmetry line, you have the face. Like, let's just imagine this is the face, the skin, and then you choose where one eye is, and then you compress that, eyeball it, compressing it. You can compress it like mathematically. You can add and take away numbers or whatever. I don't think you need that. You can use a eyeball-y method. And then out of that, you draw the tip of the nose, which is not at the center like I talked about in the tutorial. The tip of the nose here is smack dab in between, on top of the symmetry line. That's the main symmetry line, which is right here. Okay, so this is where your problem might be, Ineva, so pay attention. In front view, the tip of the nose here is centered exactly. There's equal distance on either side. Okay? In 3/4 view, it's not centered. It's off to the side a little bit. Only some is shown. So this guides you to choose where the nostrils show and which nostril, if another nostril is even showing, and if another bracket is even showing. Another Istebrak. And then you have the bridge of the nose, only visible just as much as it's needed. You don't draw a line all the way to the top. That is edge work. This is shading. This is an actual shade will be here, and another shade will begin here. Okay? Do not use a line. Do not outline. Avoid outlining. You have a bit of an outline here. You don't need it. As long as you have the tip and the edge, it'll work as a line to separate it. Do you see how that reads so quickly just by getting rid of that shading you had? Okay, so this is basically 3/4 view. Your misunderstanding could be either in misunderstanding the light source. So what's happening with you, you might be thinking that the light is shining this way, and I have to add light this way, and so the cheeks are shining this way, and all of a sudden you feel like you're losing form, but you're not. You just have to trust the light source. It could be a misunderstanding about light source. Oh, or it could be the measurement issue. So which one do you think it is, Ineva? Which one do you feel like is where you're really having problems? Is it in the original sketch phase where you have the measurements going down, or is it in the illustration phase or the painting rendering phase, let's say? So this is something you're going to have to determine for yourself. Okay? Am I lagging? Measurements mostly. So I recommend so I recommend that, Ineva, I recommend that you look at the video again. I do have it available. Let me see. Which one it is? My channel. So it might lag because I'm opening YouTube. I'm sorry about this. Let me search. How do you search in this shit? I hate the new YouTube. God damn it. Oh, right there. Okay. Nose. Okay, so this one basically, and this one, they're pretty old. I mean, I've moved past these couple of methods, but they still, the principle is still the same. So take a look at that, Ineva. That one is pretty much straightforward. It's just I go in depth into the issue of nose measurements. So as for the noses that you painted, really good use of your brush, large brush strokes here to represent larger areas of gray and grayscale. The only problem I'm seeing is you're really inconsistent with the way you're delivering the nostrils. I showed this in the other class that I did a couple days ago about how to make a hole hat look like a hole. So there's some people that paint a hole like this, okay? And this is a real problem with nostrils that I'm seeing. You guys aren't trusting this method. Okay, so some people paint a hole like this. Alright, here's a hole. This is a nostril, guys. I'm making nostril. And this is all you do, and you have a little bit of shades here and there, and then you hope it looks like a nostril. The problem is that you guys are not understanding what a hole is. It's like a cavity. So it has an edge. There's a part where the edge is, and then you have the actual shade that you have to introduce in the grayscale stage. And then you have to think about how you're using the black. You can't just throw black all in, you know. You have to wait and see exactly where the light is shining, where is the darkness coming from. So imagine the light is shining from the top. What I do is I shrink the brush slowly or use less pen pressure, and after I do that I aim the dark spot against the direction of the light. So if the light is shining down this way, the shadow graduation, the movement of darkness into the hole is moving against the light. So you see it's not darkest here, it's darkest here. And what I do next is I determine the edge. I sharpen the edge around it. Just keep sharpening. So this is an edge. This is use of an edge. It's no longer lines. Stop using lines. If you guys are using lines, you're not understanding form properly. Okay? And then, of course, there's a highlight. There's area that the light is reaching in this area here. And then you get the highlight tone and the other highlight tone. This is basically how you execute a nostril. It's supposed to look like a hole, not a slit. I know I say slit 1, nostril 2, but those are just lines to help you imagine the actual hole in the face. It's a hole in the face. So you don't just throw in a slit and hope it looks like a nose or looks like a hole here and here. This is an issue here. You're not understanding the fact that it's an actual hole that you can enter with your nose. So if you guys just imagine it as layering of matter. So you have the bottom layer, which is the bottom of the skin, or the bottom layer of the nose, the area that comes in, and then shade that forget about the top layer of the nose for a second. This is another way to do it. Forget about the top layer, just shade it as if it has some sort of canopy, or just shade it against the light source. Just trust that method. And then find the edge. And imagine, after you add in the edge, imagine that's adding in the second layer of skin of the nostril. And then you have a nostril that reads instead of just a slit that doesn't read at all. That represents sort of a more elementary understanding of your of a nostril, or holes, or form altogether. Also, don't forget, Ineva, that there is an entire shadow on the lower part of the nose. This is all in a shadow. All of this here is in shadow because the light source is shining from the top. If you forget the shadow, you'll have imbalanced grayscale. And some things will look like they're shining, some things will look like they're bright. That's not really how it's supposed to be reading, and again that will reflect lack of understanding, and then the image will suffer. Okay, so remember that technique that I just showed you about how to make a hole look like a hole. It has to be a gradual darkness. You don't use all your black all at the same time. Imagine you have 1 ounce of black paint. Okay, I didn't use no man's land quality black. I'm on 30% opacity. So I'm not even going that dark. Okay? And this is high contrast. This is all pretty high contrast. This is like one light source shining from the top in a really dark room. You want to make sure that you're decreasing the contrast, that you don't have to actually use this much dark to represent the shade. But for the sake of the study, I think you chose indirectly or unconsciously chose a high contrast just to have an excuse to use this variation of grayscale. Okay. So that's pretty much it. Understand where your light source is. Understand the measurements involved in this 3D structure. So it is a structure that protrudes, it sticks out. What does that mean, it sticks out? It means it catches all the light. talked a lot about the light spots of a face. So the face, so imagine you have a face here. The light spots of the face, or this is always the number one rule. The nose is the lightest. It's always the lightest. The forehead is almost second lightest, cheekbones third, and chin fourth. And then you've got the milk mustache on either side of the lips because the lips stick out, and then you've got the upper eyelids and all that, and then you've got eyebrows. But the reason why you have light under the eyebrows isn't because the eyebrow bone sticks out more. It's just part of the forehead. Okay, this is very angry face guy. Okay, the nose is the most sticky outy of all. So it means that it's going to be getting the most highlights and the sharpest shadow and the longest shadow. So what did we learn? Number one, don't use too much black. Okay. Number two, when the movement of the nose, I'm just trying to make it easier for you so you guys remember it, like make it sort of like a mantra or something. Like when you develop a hole in the face, when you're trying to sculpt a hole in a face, remember that it's an actual process of edges. I'm trying to show you guys exactly how, like, because it's a 2D format, so, and you're trying to create a 3D thing, and if I don't have plasticine in a webcam, I can't really show you what I mean. It's a layering of black that works exactly in proportion to the intensity of the light source. If the light source is shining in a direction, I have a video about this too, the light source will determine in which direction the dark shadow goes. And the darkest shadow is always, that's the word, climbing against the light source shine. So the light source is this way. This is light source. This is the shadow climb. It climbs against the light source, okay? So the shadow climbs against the light source. Write that down, type it, and post it back at me. I want to know all of you remembered this. Okay, type it up and post it on the message board. All of you, all 34 of you. Get ready for spam. So this is a light source line. Every light source is a combination of many lines, radiation. Okay, it's radiating out. It's all vectors, a series of lines of light. And the line of light directly shining on the nostril hole determines the actual climb of shadow. The climb of shadow is a direct response to the light. Okay? Mario, it's okay. You don't actually have to write it. Can you use that same method for the sides then? The side of the nose? You mean the bridge? The nose bridge? Yes, the brackets. The brackets it's basically you have you're using edges here. You're using outlines. You don't need outlines. Exactly the same for the nose. The thing is we're talking about the holes of the nostril, okay? The holes of the nostril are a completely different structure than what a nostril actually is. The holes are different. The nostril is another kind of thing. You understand that, Ineva? So you've got the difference between a hole and a umbrella, basically. The nostrils are like an umbrella here. If you shade an umbrella, you're going to have one part of the umbrella that's dark, and then the part that hits the light. Yes? Yeah, a fold, exactly. So don't use a line anymore. Don't actually line it up. You don't need that. Right now you're having edges and you have a light source to do all of that for you. So you just have to get a sharp brush. Let me zoom in. A sharp brush and move gradually. By knowing where the light source is, you have to know where the light source is. And slowly shade the nostril this way. Not much work is needed. You just use a soft brush or something. Shade the nostril and then find the color of the cheek around the nostril, around the fold, and form the edge. And because I just told you that the light source, the nose, the entire bottom part of the nose, including the folds, including the umbrella, the nostrils are all in shadow. So don't forget that half the umbrella is in shadow. Okay? So kind of sketched over the Give me a second. Okay. All right. Okay. No, you do tiny things and suddenly it looks great. It's raining. That's because the light source. I'm using the light source. I'm thinking about the light source. So what did we just learn? Don't use too much black when you are determining where the light source. So the darkness, the shadow of the nostril climbs against light source. You need the light source. Light sources love light sources. Okay? You guys need that in your drawings. If you don't know where that is, you don't know how shadows climb, you don't know how light falls, you don't know how shadows fall, you don't know how grayscale, how intense and how high contrast you're going to be working with the grayscale, how dark the darks are and how light the lights are. Um, um, yeah, exactly. It is always the tiny things that matter. Um, Second thing we learned is that there's a difference between a whole, an actual whole, and what represents a whole. So be careful not to use lines. Don't use lines. Okay? Okay. So this is a mess. I'm sorry. But this is the main paint over right here. And remember your measurement problem. The measurement is a matter of understanding. It's a matter of like literal mathematical way of imagining the rotation, a 3D rotation of the structure of the nose. If you're having problems or trouble with the way you're drawing a nose, it could be two things. Like I said, it could be misunderstanding how light sources work, which means you have to start thinking about light source and do some light source studies, or it could be a problem with the entire understanding of the measurement behind the nose and how you understand it. As, the habits you've created to understand it for yourselves. So it's either those two things, Ineva. I hope that helped all of you as well, not just Ineva. Do you guys have any questions on the matter of the nose so that I don't forget it, so we're still on topic instead of answering it later? Alright. Sorry, copied from Notepad. I'm back to listening now. That's fine. Edges, no lights. Lines, light is the ruler. Sharp, soft, contrast. Place nostrils correctly and see if the bracket or nostril against the lights. Okay, happens. Okay. Is there a threshold on how dark you can get in the nostril holes before it's too dark? Good question. There's a thing that I call the dark spots of the face. Oh my god, dark spots. I'm always talking about them. And it is in this stage here that you determine how dark you're going to go. So let's say you're drawing a face and you're going in. I also have videos about this too, so don't neglect the other videos or else I'm just going to be here repeating everything I say. But when you draw a face, you have to first determine the general shadows. So just find like a general grayscale that everything goes in. And then you have the awesome dark spots stage, okay? Dark spots are 6 places on the face. Let me just get rid of this. Okay, dark spots are the 2 eyes. Depends really if you're going to translate this dark spot of the eye through eyeliner or through the iris. It's really up to you. Okay, this girl looks like she's spaced out. Okay, there's the 2 dark spots of the eyes. Alright, then you have the 2 nostrils and the 2 lip corners. This dark spot determination process promises you, makes you promising yourself that you're not going to go any darker than this. So you choose how dark you're going to go and then you say, that's it, I'm not going any darker, and I trust this dark level here because it's not in no man's land and it's somewhere here. The skin is going to look like skin with this level of dark. Remember, you can't use like pure black because skin cannot entertain that level of darkness unless the room is completely dark. You have to remember that it's just a matter of the light source. Again, light source is God. Stay away from no man's land. Yes, deadly. And make sure you're choosing a level that's like somewhere here. This is a pretty good dark level to go to. If you're going to make it a more dramatic light source, this could be another dark to go with. So it's either this one or this one as the dark spots. Let me erase the darks here so you guys get better understanding of the darks here. And then the light source should be out of no man's land in light, so stay away from that. This is how light you can go. You see how light that is? See the contrast already there? This is high contrast right here. Beside each other it looks like black and white, but you saw a moment ago that it's neither black nor white. Do you see this? But it's enough contrast for anybody, especially if you're drawing a face. Face has way less contrast than this. Face has probably, depending on the kind of light source, of course you want to choose a flattering light source. Face has this kind of light source and this level of light, maybe for highlights. Okay? Do you guys get me? Is it wrong getting my values from my own canvas? No, not at all. When I have a color that I like, I just get my colors from my canvas. After a while, I don't even go to my my color picker, only when I want to change an eye color or something and use the color modes. Okay? So are you all with me? Did you guys get everything that I'm saying? Do you understand me, Ineva? Yes, Domino, it definitely can be a choice of style. However, if you're trying to go for realism, it's an accidental style rather than an intentional. Do you know what I mean? It's no longer, you're using style as an excuse for your mistakes instead of using style as an actual deliberate vision and a deliberate rule breaking. Okay? If you want to use a strange dark black surrounded by nice skin tones, it's your choice, of course. You do what you want with your drawing. It's your world, but it won't look appropriate to the skin tone surrounding it. If you're using darks everywhere, if there's like blacks everywhere and you want to make a bold statement with the blacks against the beige, you can, of course. I'm not sure what the situation would be, but you can, of course, make a stylistic choice. Just remember that you're breaking a rule. It's not an excuse. It's not an exception to the rule. It's just you're breaking the rule and you know it and you're ready to get punished for it. That's really it. Okay? I mean, carry on. The only reason I mention it is if you ask a question I don't answer, that might be why. What? Oh, back. What am I getting punished for? No, no, no. Not. This is another question I'm answering. Ineva. Style. Just stay away from the black for now. I'm sure all of you are in your own different level in your art career, in your art study, but you'll notice the more black you use, the more you're going to be forced to use lights because it's going to look too dark and you're going to be like, oh, why does it look so muddy? And then you're going to try to change it from grayscale to color and it's going to look super muddy because it's already too dark. And most colors, I have a video on this, do not have this much darkness. Do you see how all the saturation is up here and all the darker colors are down here? All the muddy colors are here. Where is brown on the color wheel? It's dark orange. It's just dark orange. And if you don't want muddy look and the brown look in your colors, stay away from this area. Stay in these beautiful, loving, delicious, lighter tones, okay? So stay away from the blacks. No racism intended. So I'll send this back to you. I'll do a before and after on this one nose here. It is softer. I did use a soft brush, but I hope you know what I mean with the shadows. Just pay attention to how I place the shadow on the darker, on the lower part of the nose, the part that doesn't look at the light, and light on the top part. So what I mean is, if the light was shining this way, and you have the bottom part of the nose, it's an actual like bottom part, it's an actual like basement, it's facing away. Imagine lines are emanating from the object on all sides, and this is the edge. If this line and the light of the light source are all parallel, there's light in this part of the nose. If this line is absolutely completely opposing the light source, it's not even looking at it, not parallel, but it's looking away from it, then you're going to have a shadow. It's either 180 degrees or 180 degrees towards, 180 degrees against. You know what I mean? So this whole part has, if you squint your eyes, you see this whole part is light and this whole part is dark. And that's the main idea here. This is dark and this is light. This is why the nose I drew looks more realistic and why the nose you drew looked like it was lacking something. It was basically this distinction, where the light source is, how it reacts to the light source, and all that. Let me delete that mess I made. Okay? Close, please. Okay. So now everything is less intense. Got that out of the way. Noses are those subjects that um, they're really difficult. They used to be my biggest obstacle in painting a face as a kid. Um, I used to just not understand them. I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I learned everything in the wrong way. And I made enough mistakes that I developed this weird understanding about how noses works from the ground up, I guess, instead of the top down. Um, and I guess that's why my method is working for some of you, because it literally comes from a very confused young mind that belonged to me. And I'm answering all the questions that I had, so I hope it helps um, that way. So that's why my art looks muddy. I use too many darks. Yeah, maybe. Maybe you're just using brown. Maybe you have like an inclination to use brown, but most likely it's you're misunderstanding. You haven't spent enough time thinking about grayscale. I have videos on grayscale. I have videos pretty much on a lot of stuff. Um, Ew, Destiny. What? It says learning the nose beneficial for other things. It says learning the nose beneficial for other things. Um, of course it is, because it means that you understand how form works. And if you understand how form works because you practiced the nose one day, of course that's revolutionary to how you're going to understand everything else. You're going to be able to paint a desk better. You're going to be able to draw a shadow better. So, uh, yeah, of course. I recommend you do some form studies. I have some of them on YouTube. All right, next thing is this painting right here. So, what have we learned today? The power of your light source. The light source is the god of your image. Please forget that I just said that joke, and let's move on. Oh, you're never gonna let me forget it, are you? I know, Oreo. I know you're quoting it. I know you're copy pasting. Thanks, Sister. Is that Aries? No, it's Michelle Edrips. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? I miss her. Where has she been? So I'm just getting my light source here. The reason why I recommend you guys use this kind of light source right here is because this is the most flattering kind of light source for portraits. I'm not saying it's directly above. If this is the head, it's not directly above, okay? It is this way. There's an angle to it. There's a 45-degree angle, okay? Never. Oh my gosh. All right. So, yes, exactly. This is the most flattering kind of lighting. Why is it the most flattering? Because the shadows of the nose don't move over the lips. The shadows of the eyes are in the perfect spot to reveal the light. The shadows of the eyebrows don't overtake the eyes, and the shadows of the lips don't overtake the chin. If you're having these intense kind of shadows, then you are deliberately breaking the light source and you're having a more vampiric light source going on. So let me get on it. And choose my light source just a bit lighter. And what I'm going to show you now is intensifying the light source and the way it's reacting. So everything here is going to be reacting to this light source, this 45-degree angle. And the nose, of course, like I just showed you, is one of those, it is the most sticky outie. So it'll get the most, it's one of those things where the skin is both reflective and there is exposure to the light source. So what does that mean? It means that there are two ways to get shine on the face, because the light is directly on it and really close to it, or that the skin is wet and shiny. Okay? Another thing that needs to happen is the whole face needs to start responding to this main light source. The whole head. So chin, that, and the bottom of the head. Remember, the head it doesn't look like this. Okay, it isn't an actual flat surface. It moves with the curvature of the face. So you've got the nose, then you've got the lips, and then you've got the chin. They are not all on the same level. If they are, the chin protrudes too much and sticks past the nose does, and that's unflattering. What you want, I need to teach you guys the cuteness triangle on the profile view. But chin cannot be as bright as the nose. You're breaking the levels, the heightness. Okay? So this is the kind of light source you want to bring in. This is the kind of interaction with the light source that this portrait needs. Alright, so let me shrink that again for you. Alright, so do you see what happened? Let me flatten the image. Before, after. Before, after. You can still, I did take away some of your details. I do apologize because I had to use the soft brush. I'll use the sharpen tool to try to revive some of it. But if you don't have this understanding of the biggest shape in the object, the reason why this worked is because you guys didn't see the head as one big massive shape that is responding to the light source. So you have a big shape that has smaller shapes on it. Okay, but it's still a big shape in its own right, and there's still a light source shining on it. So it's still going to have one half that's light and one half that's not, one half that's dark and one half that's light. You guys forget that this is a big spherical shape with edges and sides that is three-dimensional. And that was the problem with this particular portrait. It wasn't that you didn't understand how the nose works. It wasn't the lip problem. It's a very beautiful face. But the issue was that you didn't treat it as one large unit responding to the light source. So you need that kind of understanding, because it's a matter of whether or not your grayscales, your scale of grays, the actual graduation between the darks and the lights is making sense at all. Why would the nose get this kind of shadow on it if the whole head is lit? It doesn't make any sense. Look at the shadow of the nose. It seems so out of place because the chin and the lower part of the face, they're all pretty much lit the same exact value as the upper cheek is to the area beside the chin. That makes no sense. This is because you don't treat the head as one large object that has dark spots and light spots on it. Also, don't forget, hair causes sharp shadows, so it seemed like the hair was sticking out, but there really wasn't a shadow there. Wouldn't be that much, but it's enough that it's missed. Excuse me. Okay, and as for hair, the issue with hair, I have like a problem when the students think that you can approach hair in any method. You really can't. There's just one specific method. It's not my personal method. I use it, but it's not something that I invented. It's pretty much accepted worldwide, at least with the bigger artists. You need to, first of all, just like what we did, you need to find out the biggest shades of the hair, where the hair is light and where the hair is dark. After that, sorry, I coughed in your ears, I'm sorry. After that, you determine where the biggest parts of the hair are, so you keep your brush large. Make sure you stay in that general, the general grayscale value of the area involved. And then you shrink your brush again. Maybe get a dark tone or a light tone, and you just vary the brush sizes. Eventually the brush size will be much smaller. Okay? And you always need a reference, of course. You can go in and gamble it and see if you can get it right. But the point of this method is that you are thinking about the larger subject, so you're respecting the general grayscale. You're not deviating outside of it by trying to paint in tiny little hairs like you did here. That you deviated away from it, and all the hairs look like they're really flat ironed with gel. You want to have the shadows, the hair casting shadows on itself, the hair catching some light, and actual natural highlights in the hair and actual darks that are causing this. And then eventually you detail it, and it will eventually come together. It won't look like big, large brush mess that might look like right now. Okay? And keep shrinking your brush. And the more you shrink your brush, the closer you will get to the hair texture. And I think that's what you guys go for right away, and that doesn't work because you need the larger parts to get the smaller parts in. Okay? And then you shrink your brush again, heighten the opacity, and then you can start painting in those 1 pixel width brush strokes with darks and lights. Of course, respecting the values around it. Okay, so does everyone understand that about hair? And yes, hair does have large dark spots and large light spots, and highlights as well that are more saturated around the highlight. So if you are going to color this, the saturation level increases automatically, and you're going to have like a ring of saturation around that one area. Yeah, soft brush. Thing is, I go through this enhance thing multiple times. Every time it looks more effective. When do I know it's enough light? First of all, you have to know what the exact identification of the light source you're using is. If you're using it up here, this is the #1 method. I mean, this is like the #1 value. This is the light source. Nothing can be as light as this because nothing is a light source other than the light source. Everything is reflecting, and as long as it's reflecting, the more it reflects. So let's say this is 100%, it goes down to 90, 80, 50, and then it reflects into 30% of what the light source is. So think about it in that sense. Remember that nothing is as light as the light source. Everything is a movement down from the light source. And then make sure that it depends on reflectiveness of the object. So if the object is reflective or not determines how efficient the reflection will be, therefore how light the value you're going to use is. You guys listening or what? Hello. It's okay. Never, shut up. It's okay. It's okay. You don't have to message. I'm just talking to those talkative fellas in the back. Alright, so I'll show you the before and after for Michelle. Before. So this was a low contrast, but if it's going to be this low contrast, Michelle, the eyebrow wouldn't have this shadow on the eye, and the nose wouldn't have this shadow. You can have this level of light, but the nose that you were drawing and the eye that you were drawing, it was telling us that the light source was directly in the 45-degree angle. All right. But after this is how the light source now is reflecting to the Rembrandt light source. So do you see the difference? Before, only one thing was reflecting to the light source. Everything reacting to the light source. Now everything is reacting to the light source. Okay? Sure, of course, Dudley. Of course. I mean, when else can you ask a portraiture-related question other than during portrait hour? Go ahead. I'm going to drink some water. During the anatomy part, because Rebel. Of course, Dudley, you can ask away. Very good stuff, Michelle. What you had before, I wish I could show you without losing the history, is you could have just gotten rid of this nostril shadow and given the eyes more light, and it would have worked. That light source would have worked because you were no longer having cast shadows. Remember, cast shadows are because there is a light that is close by that is causing this light source to be casting a shadow. So imagine the shadow of an object standing upright with a light source right here, versus how the shadow reacts if the light source is all the way over here. It's like almost no shadow. Okay? So this is sharper. These are rules, by the way. These are fundamental physics rules. Physics, physics, physics. Okay, this is not my bullshit. There's a lot of my bullshit in here, like Bob and Steve, but this is not bullshit. You guys can trust the physics portion of fundamentals. Well, my biggest problem at the moment is keeping the eyes symmetrical in a front view. I flip around the canvas a lot trying to get my marks right, but they always end up lopsided. Flip your canvas early, deadly. So right when you just choose where you're going to draw the face and you have two shadows, two noses, this is already too late. Because you're going to trust this particular brush stroke and this particular brush stroke to guide you around the eyes. I have had this problem all my life, deadly. I will tell you, the only way out of it is to literally measure. Okay, measure it. Duh. And then flip the motherfucking canvas. Flip that motherfucker. Flip, motherfucker. It's not flipping. Okay, image, rotation, okay. And then, okay, now you have the equal space here. Even before you even started painting, you have the same space in between the eyes. Do the same thing with the nose. Flip that motherfucker. And you're getting symmetry. And you'll eventually paint over this, you know, and you can put on another layer, do what you want, do what you need to do. But you have to remember to have these measurements in there. Okay? Don't measure it later when you're freaking painting lashes. That's way too late. By then it's too late because you've lost all of that time and you're going to have to paint over all that detail. So the best thing to do in this case is to just tackle it head on. Apply directly to the forehead. Okay, so you see how the symmetry is generally there. You're still messing around, but you're not losing any real large parts of the face. Okay. Excuse me, I think I'm going to need a moment alone with this sketch here. I was just having too much fun. Y'all is too much fun. Okay, I'm done with this. I'll save this and send it back to you. Oh shit, I didn't erase that. And now for Oreos. Oreo's been working really hard these past couple of, this is everything you ever needed in life, Deadly? Come on, you should aim higher. Hello, Marosian. Thank you for coming from YouTube. It's nice to hear someone coming in from YouTube. I've been forgetting to upload the video. Okay, Oreo. So, I told you to add in texture. I told you to start it off as warm, but it turned into this, which is awesome. Now, here is the problem. Somewhere down the line, you're painting texture. You bring in you're like, okay, I think I'm ready to bring in texture. You weren't ready to bring in texture, but let's just imagine you were ready to bring in texture, Oreo. Joseph. You didn't bring in the texture, and keep in mind the spot rendering that you could have been causing. Over here, your brush size is literally this size right here. So we've got a brush size that is this big in this area here, this wide. Over here, let me see if I can even, you've got a brush size that is this small. If you're texturing this early and you're texturing to this level and you've got brush sizes this big on another part of your drawing, you're having problems. Okay, so is it back? Is it lagging? How is it? Can you guys hear me, or is it just Oreo? And the back. Is this a bird? No, it's like a worm creature. You can hear it. Never left. Okay, so you recognize that you were spot rendering early on. When is it ready then, Istebrak, to bring in a texture? It's ready to bring in a texture when, one, you have no time and you need to fill this in fast, so you need to work smart, not hard. So when you have no time, or the rendering capacity has gone beyond the expectancy, so the realism that is expected is beyond your rendering capacity. So meaning you need realism. Realism is imp. This is the only part you'll need texture this. I just want to use the word dubious. Texture this dubious. Okay? I don't care if it doesn't make any sense. All of this texture here that you would have, that I told you, I saw this before you started adding texture, was pretty good. All of this texture, you could have just created it with a couple of texture brushes, along with some well-placed, so you could have just enlarged this on a new layer, and threw in the texture. Got your eraser. So this is one way to texture. I already made a video about this. So like adding in a texture and then erasing what you don't need. So thinking about where the light source is. The light source has higher concentration of darks, so higher contrast. And so you're going to erase away depending on the light source. But all light source can also mean in reflective areas there's no darks at all. So it really depends on what kind of skin you're working with. And you erase this. And then after you get a pretty basic texture like that, you have to go in with your brush at one point. You can't depend on the texture to do it for you. You're going to have to go in with your brush and develop some organic patterns. And just keep going with it. Don't zoom in all the way. Just use the texture brush as a guide. It's not going to finish your drawing. Don't paint like a photo manipulator. You guys are illustrators. You're here learning the rules of fundamental art and principles and all of that important shit. So don't depend on a photograph to render for you. You can never probably find a photograph that is in the exact same light source as you need. And you just have to find a way, zooming in and zooming out, to develop some sort of pattern, an organic pattern that respects the light source that you chose. And you just keep going in, think about veins. And you're not going to add in all this detail if you haven't yet even finished the design. If you don't know where the veins are going to be, if there are going to be veins, if you don't know where the muscles are going to be, if there are going to be muscles, you're not ready to add in spot rendering and texture. You're not ready at all. I feel like this image wasn't ready. It wasn't ready for the texture stage, and you want to jump in Oreo and you want to see your image finished, but you put in the time to prep the image for that kind of detailing. It's not ready. It hasn't yet. It's like taking out the pizza before it's done and adding the garnish, or I don't know what else. What other cooking metaphor can I use? You're just adding in the spices too soon, or the garnishes, the parsley. You need to slow down your gears. Think about the muscle structure. Think about what kind of, like, is it going to have saggy boobs? Is he like that guy from Pan's Labyrinth? What is his design? What's going on here? Before you even start rendering, because this is going to throw you off like nothing else. And you're going to want to change values maybe. You're going to want to paint over some areas. Think of it as one large object. And throw some general shadows over top. And you're going to have to paint over all of the detail you established. Which might not have taken long because you use a texture, but still, it's still going to be a mess. You want to make sure you have everything in order before you start throwing in the details. Peter Moorbacher, I'm sure you guys have heard of him, uploaded a video some time ago. It's called How to Add Texture Without Looking Like a Douche. I love that video. I watched that when I was younger and it helped me understand all of this. Please find that video and watch it if he hasn't deleted it. Probably has, because the title's pretty off, but he gets to the point. Okay, these details here are way too detailed. You don't have large portions. You don't have the big parts in order to have the little parts flying off the big parts. So all I see is a million tiny little hairs and no large chunks of hair. Even, cat fur has big chunks of hair on it. If you guys have seen fur, let me show you here quickly. Fur, cat, white. Come on, come on. Hey. Images. Do you see how, let me find a good one. It's not a bajillion little tiny hairs. It's chunks of hair that can be represented by a couple of strokes of your brush. Do you see this? Do you see what I'm saying, guys? This is one large brush stroke. This is one large brush stroke. And then you have the tiny ones just dispersed strategically around. But you still have big portions. If you want to know where the main light source, where the main values are, squint your eyes and look at the image. Really squint them. And you'll see that it's just big chunk here, big chunk here, big chunk here. You still have to keep your brush large for this very reason, that you don't lose the actual weight of the material you're drawing. Fur has weight. And if you're not representing that weight, it's going to look like a bunch of skin flakes. It looks like he's shedding skin up here. Do you see what I mean, Oreo? It's meant to be like patchy fur. So where are the patches? Like where are the large portions of fur? Where are the smaller portions? This is what you need to do. So again, it's the same old thing, larger to smaller. Okay. And when you want to detail, you cannot add the detail if you don't have the larger. This is 1, this is 2. Alright? So I can only handle 1 hour of critiques today. The Q&A session begins now. So if you guys want to, actually I don't need to save. If you guys have any questions for me, please ask. What is that? Is that one of your drawings, Oreo? Yeah. This is something you should have kept. You should have kept this. Look at this. You could have taken this somewhere else. Let me show you. No, no. Oh. Can I drag it on my desktop? Okay. You could have really, all you could have, or you could have done, all you needed to do actually is just find some smaller shapes, break up these shapes into smaller ones, and you're going to have fur. Just watch. Larger chunks flying out in the back. Remembering the shadows that they're casting on each other. I'm just using the smudge tool for time. And then shrink your brush one more time to like really small. And then at this point you can start detailing. But you don't even need fur texture because it is still a concept that's early. It's an early concept. They're not going to expect, employers are not going to expect that level of detail if they haven't even determined the stage. And you're a concept artist, so you're going to be throwing concepts at them. And you're going to have to work smart. And you can't be worrying about large spot rendering like you just did now. You can't be worrying about how realistic this particular patch of fur is going to look. You're just going to have to keep going. I kind of painted away some of this stuff, but I'm sorry. Just thinking about the shadows being cast here. I'm not using a textured brush. So this is casting a shadow on this, so this is going to be lit. This is going to be half lit, then this is casting a shadow on this. And this is going to have a shadow, and this is going to be somewhat lit. And you're just going to have to keep following that pattern. And then you're going to have areas here that are in shadow. And you keep taking that fur thing. But painting fur takes a long time. Wouldn't it be quicker to just slap a texture on it? No, it wouldn't, because the reason why you use a texture, you first have to know what are textures used for. They're used to heighten the realism in a particular spot. They're not used to paint for you. Textures don't paint for you. They just enhance what you've already painted. You have to understand that distinction. If you don't, you're going to be using textures wrong, and then, according to Peter Moorbacher, you're going to look like a douche. Not in my opinion, though. I don't think you look like a douche. I think you guys are just experimenting. You guys deserve to make mistakes. You guys need to make mistakes. As the saying goes, the master has made more mistakes than the student. That's the difference between the student and the master.